Elysium, but not in the pure sense strain. They weren't
When the explosion happened, the stuff that became the solar system was barren, is what you're saying, and then it was reseeded.
Yeah, and it was reseeded here with a lot of different things, not just our race, but there were a lot of different ones contributed, different types of animal forms, plant forms, those kind of things. Most of them did come from the second harmonic universe, where they would bring patterns in and reseed them down here to create a version of them in the lower harmonic in order to bring life and more productivity to this area. But they have said that in our solar system, there was life on different planets, such as Mars, such as Venus, and Jupiter, I believe they said, and definitely Nibiru. So there were cultures, but they weren't our cultures. Some of them were Anunnaki, completely, like that didn't have anything to do with the Turiniciums. Some of them were other ones from the first harmonic universe, because even in our harmonic universe, not in our solar system right now, but way out in our galaxy, there are planets that do sustain life in various different forms, some of them biological. All right, but for tonight, what I'd like to keep focused on is basically just how we got here and where we came from. There's a million questions that can be asked, with this stuff in the solar system, and I'm going to try to stick to where I'm going with this so I can get to the end, which gets into us personally. Okay, so about 250 million years ago, the electric wars, they call them, were fought, and the planet was again made a mess of for, I believe they said, several 100,000 years passed before it could again sustain the experiment, but at least they won the territory, and they sat through waiting for the Earth to become hospitable again, where it could sustain life. And the Syrian Confederation, basically, is what won those electric wars. They fought with various factions, one of them called the Dracon, which are from the Vega star systems, and they have D3 versions of Dracon, and they also have first harmonic versions of Dracon and also second harmonic versions. So these wars did take place way before we were here. They won back the territory, and then they seeded what's called the T2 race, the Turinicium 2. That's us. Turinicium 2 were the 12 tribes, or what are considered the 12 tribes of the human race. About 2,500,000 years ago, they were brought here and reseeded on the planet. They were created from the Turinicium 1 pure strain genetic code. They took that 12-strand DNA that the Turinicium 1s from Harmonic 2 had. They broke it into 12 different pieces, and then they polarized each to make 2 strands. It created 12 separate tribes of beings, which all came out of one primary race, which were the Turinicium 1 from the Harmonic 2 universe. Okay. The 12 strands were separated and polarized, and the polarization is what gave us genderization. And this is where our Adam and Eve stories, what they're really trying to explain to us in very metaphorical terms, was how we were created. I mean, we get this story of being created out of Adam's rib and all of those things. What they were really cloaking in those stories was the fact that at one point we were not gender polarized. And in the beginning of life on our planet here, planet Earth, when our Turinicium 2 race was seeded here, we, Adam and Eve, were thus created out of the one primary strand of DNA. So you have 12 tribes, each with one strand of DNA, polarize the DNA, and you have 2 genders operating through each of the 12 tribes. Okay. Right, the purpose of the 12 tribes was to evolve over a long period of time in the first harmonic universe, to slowly reassemble through the gene pool and through the progression of races and evolution over very large expanses of time. We were supposed to grow back into the 12-strand prototype that we had come out of. This was not going to happen quickly. This was going to be millions of years of evolution that we had to go through here before we could get to that point. We were kept under very close eye by the Elohim, and we were messed with by the Anunnaki. They decided, we'd rather use them as like kind of slave labor and that kind of thing. So the Anunnaki and the Elohim had a falling out. The Elohim tried to protect us, but they wouldn't let us evolve too quickly because they didn't want to create another mess like that was created in the second harmonic universe. So we were actually repressed in a lot of ways. they did something. Our gene code started to evolve, and it started to evolve rapidly. We started to build a lot of those, put together a lot of the separated gene codes that were in the original 12 strand. And they took out, the Elohim took out of our gene codes certain key elements that would allow other gene codes to plug in. They didn't remove them completely. They took them out of the operating DNA strands, and they put them into I believe, the nucleus of the cell. Our scientists call them junk DNA. They're little particles of what resemble DNA, and they just seem to be there. That's our missing memory. It is our missing DNA. It's not missing. It's just unplugged. The Elohim were the primary force that created this distortion. It's a genetic mutation that was done to us on purpose to make us evolve less quickly, because they were very, very concerned. They watched us again in our race since we were seeded on this planet. Again, certain parts of us went into animal digression. We interbred with animals, some parts of us, and distorted the gene code again. So we were creating distortions in the gene code. The Elohim did not want to see that distortion added to the acceleration and building back into the 12 strand, because God knows what it would create. It would create some kind of very powerful possible monster. So they unplugged us in order to try to rebalance and purify the genetic strain. They didn't do it in a real fair way, though. They had certain favorites that had certain of the Turanicium 2 races, the 12 tribes, had more of the Lyran strain of the Turanicium gene codes within them. They favored the Lyrans because they were the founders, and the Elohim were very close to the Lyrans. So they weren't really fair to a lot of the other 12 tribes that didn't contain, that didn't carry more of the Lyran strain. So a lot of there's information coming out now in our times through some communicated, not my channeled material or anything like that, but other people's channeled material, that the Elohim were actually a negative extraterrestrial force. They were, but they weren't. We would not still be alive today if they hadn't been here, because they kept our gene code alive when we almost digressed this time through animal interbreeding to the point where we would have completely negated ourselves again. So they did keep us going, but they have repressed our evolution to some degree, out of protection for the rest of the universe, basically. And they are trying to help us now. They are willing to communicate. They are willing to help us understand the process, but they have a very strident set of spiritual rules before they will allow certain things to happen. And they are a force to contend with. People, a lot of times in our world, don't realize these beings are real. They seem like mythological creatures from our ancient history. Our ancient history sometimes knew more about what was taking place in the second harmonic universe. They knew it existed, and we don't know that yet. So the stories, sometimes it's good to listen to some of the old stories about the Elohim and the other things, because they are real, and they're describing real extraterrestrial races from Harmonic 2 that are still influencing us today. Okay, let's see. Okay, so basically, we were put here to evolve over a long period of time. Through this process, all of the souls that fell, this was the fall of man, we fell from Terra down into this system, we would be able to evolve back up into the second harmonic universe, back into our proverbial heaven, where we had come from. This was done in a way where the 12 tribes were broken into what's called 7 root races. Okay? These root races would not appear all at the same time on the planet. First one would come, and then the next one that had a higher genetic code would come, and then the next one with a higher genetic code. And it would progress until the highest, the 7th, would finally come, and that would have the ability to embody the full 12 strands of DNA. All right? There were 7 root races, and there were 5 what they call cloistered races. The cloistered races, and they haven't given me the names of all of these, only one. The cloistered races were special in that they were allowed to hold within their genetic code the whole pattern of what they call the silicate matrix, the 12-strand DNA pattern. So at any time when these 7 root races were evolving, there would be at least the presence of one cloistered race that would keep alive in the gene pool the full 12-strand DNA pattern. They were guardians. The cloistered races were appointed as guardians of the original prototype, and they would appear within each phase of development. There are races today among us who carry the silicate matrix. Okay? Now, each of us carry some part of the silicate matrix, because the silicate matrix is basically the Tyrannissium 1 genetic strain. Each of us carry some part of it. But the ones who are of cloistered families, of genetic lines, will carry more portions of it. Very few people on the planet right now carry all of it, but some are very close. Okay? The 7 root races. Now, these are names that several of the Guardian groups call them different things, which is not useful to me because it makes it more complicated. They said that these names were used elsewhere, so go ahead and use those rather than try to translate some of their more strange-sounding names. They called the first race the Polarians, and the second race the Hyperbornians. Both of these were not as physical as we are right now. They were more of like a ghost-like composition of matter. They were conscious and they lived as a race and they had the reality in the first harmonic universe, but they were not as fully physical as we are. The first fully physical race they call the Lumanians, and they said it's not the Lumerians, it's the Lumanians. They existed for a period of time here on the planet, and they didn't give me the dates. They've just given me this material, so I don't have a lot of the technical data on dates and where they were and all that. But these were the first ones to appear out of the reseeding of the Tyrannissium 1 race. When the 12 tribes were seeded, this was the first physical race to appear on this planet. And they evolved for many thousands of years, I believe. The next root race were the Atlanteans. Now they call them these because on Terra there was a place, I believe it was called Lumia and Atlantia, and that's where these strains came out of. The first root race carried a stronger version of the genetic codes from the Lumia Terra strain, and then the Atlanteans carried the Atlantean one. So there's a connection to these root races and the races of Tyrannissium that had been on Terra. Alright, the 5th root race is called the Aryans. They didn't tell me why it's called that, and it's not the Aryans as Hitler described it. It has nothing to do with that. It is who we are now, all of us. I mean, every race that's on the planet now is part of the Aryan root race. And we represent the 5th stage in the processing of the 7 root races on the planet. We technically have 2 more to go as souls, which means most of us would experience reincarnation within the 6th root race and then in the 7th in order to build into our consciousness the full 12 codes that would allow us to remanifest ourselves within the 2nd harmonic universe. But there are shortcuts, and that's what we're going to get into tonight. We don't necessarily have to evolve. It would probably take, they said, about 20,000 years to go through these other 2 root races as a species. It will take the species that long. There are things happening with the planet that may cut the experiment short. So they're teaching us how to accelerate this process. So we do get a chance to evolve back into what we once were, Tyrannissium. Okay, they call them the Maruvians. These are just beginning to come into being here. There are humans that are carrying what they're calling Maruvian codes within their gene structures. They will have a bit more easy access to things we call psychic abilities, to strange abilities that seem superhuman compared to us. The souls that are able to hold that kind of gene code are just starting to come in. Some of them are being born now as babies and that kind of stuff. It will take many, many years for that to be the dominant race. Right now, the Aryan race is the dominant race. What they call the Paradissians, some people here call it the Paradissians, I've heard of it before, theirs are actually the Tyrannissiums. That will be the 7th. When we finally get to the point where we have evolved into the 7th root race gene code, we will be back to what we are. Because the cloistered races who have kept within our gene pool the whole time the original pattern, once we have hit the 7th root race, we'll be able to plug in all of the genetic codes that are carried by the cloisters, and we will transmute ourselves as a race over large expanses of time back into the Tyrannissium 1 prototype that we came out of. We don't really have to worry about doing that right now as a race, because it's not going to happen for a very long time. But there are things that can be done to accelerate the process for each one of us here. And that's what's exciting about it. We are not as far removed from our DNA as we think we are. We have more control over what it does than we're taught by science. Science doesn't understand the chelantic element to DNA, which was covered in the first two classes, a bit of that, where we got into the structures that DNA is composed of. All right, we can accelerate the process of our evolution by activating those dormant DNA codes that are stored in the cell nucleus. There are certain things we can do to begin this process. One of the first things we need to do in order to clear our present genetic strain, to be able to make this transmutation into the higher genetic strain, is we have to clear out the mutation that was done to us by the Elohim, and also a few others that were done to us by some other extraterrestrial groups that just decided to mess with the species and see what they could do a long time ago. There are certain genetic distortions we carry right now that we need to get out of our way in order to begin plugging in the rest of our DNA. Okay. Now, I won't kid you and say it's an easy process. It's just 1, 2, 3. Here's what DNA looks like and here's what you have to do. There is a lot of work that has to be done to get your mind to the point where it understands, first of all, what process it's a part in. But okay, let me see what I'm doing here for a minute. I want to make sure I didn't lose anything. Okay. Oh, I just want to throw this in here. There's a little note that I made that really doesn't apply to anything. In the Bible, they mention the Nephilim. The Guardians have said that these were actually giants. They were mutations created by the Anunnaki, the Syrian Anunnaki fathers, that had mixed with the Atlantean and Aryan Earth mothers. So these were actually a real race of beings that walked here too. And there was a series of energy things that happened to the planet that created floods that did wipe them out, and the Elohim did it, because they created a race of very intelligent beings that were making the human race totally subservient to them, and they got rid of them. So they were real. It was not just a little, Bible story there. That was a real race that was causing a problem with our race. Okay, to begin the process of understanding what plugging in DNA is about and what accelerating your evolution is about, you really cannot do this without discovering a part of yourself called your higher self. All right? No other person can give you the personal, intimate knowledge of your gene code. There's nobody out here that can do that for you. You have to find that through the portion of yourself that's called your higher self. Now, a lot of people say, well, great, I probably have one. What is it? What is it? Where does it live? Am I my higher self? Sometimes we are. This little chart will hopefully give you some idea of the levels of personal identity and where the higher self is located in relation to the rest of us. Okay? All right, right here, I have a chart of the 15-dimensional scale. I just did it square this time. Okay? We have the first harmonic universe here, dimensions 1, 2, and 3. Second harmonic, and I just stacked them easy so it would be easy to show in the diagram. They actually have that flip in there that I covered before. So I just stacked them 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way through 15. So we have first harmonic universe, second, third, fourth, and fifth. All right, here we are down in the first harmonic universe. We have our subatomic and molecular components in the first dimensional frequency bands. They're composed of first dimensional frequency bands. Okay, we have our more complex elemental units that form our bodies, the water in our bodies, the molecules that compose our bodies. They are formed of energy patterns that are part of the D2, second dimensional frequency bands. Then we have our mental awareness, which is actually a quantity of energy that's attached to the other two quantities of energy that is focused within the frequency bands of the third dimension. Okay? Now, it's a little hard to see because this isn't really big enough, but each dimension is further broken down into 4 primary frequency bands. So each one of these, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 15, there are 4 primary frequency bands in each one of those dimensions. There is an ultra-low frequency, a low frequency, a high frequency, and an ultra-high frequency band. They're bands of energy pulsation. Right now, our consciousness is stationed within the mid-range, between the low and high frequency bands. we perceive within this perceptual field. We will perceive the unified field of things that exist within these frequency bands. We won't see as physical matter anything that exists above them. We can only see as some of the physical matter we see is actually some of the frequency bands that are taking place down here. When we look out around us, we're seeing part of this, and we're seeing part of these frequency bands, and when we look under microscopes, we're seeing this down here. Okay? So right now, our consciousness is stationed here. That's our waking I am self. Alright? Our higher self is not just, some people say our higher self is our soul and all that. Not really. Our higher self is a bridge between our soul and our conscious identity. Our higher self is the part of our consciousness that, as we speak, is stationed within the ultra-high frequency bands of the third dimension. And it creates a bridge between what's called the astral level of awareness, which is the fourth dimensional aspect of our identity. For we have an aspect of our identity, a part of our energy pattern and our consciousness exist within each one of these 15 dimensions. And the process of our personal evolution is the process of bringing more and more of these higher dimensional aspects of ourselves and our identity into our body and into focus in physicality. So our first step is learning to work with the higher self, because the higher self will help you do a lot of things. All right, it holds a lot of information. It holds the information about your gene codes, and it also has access to the information of the soul levels. If we look at the levels of personality, we covered this a little bit in the second class, but I'll go over it real quick here. You can look at, in the first harmonic, you have what's called the incarnate, and that's us, the part of us that's composed of dimensions 1, 2, and 3. Now, the soul is a literal quantity of energy also. It's the part of us that lived on Terra. It's the part of us that is still focused. There's still an energy imprint within the second harmonic universe, even though our bodies are no longer there. There's still an energetic imprint of us left there. It's called our soul. The soul resides within dimensions 4, 5, and 6. There's 3 levels to it. In harmonic 3, which is dimensions 7, 8, and 9, that would be the place where what we call the oversoul is located. And these are all parts of our personal identity that each of us are connected to right now. In fourth harmonic universe, we would have what's called the avatar level of identity. After you get past the 7th dimensional aspect of identity, you are dealing with energy identity. It is no longer able to be housed in a biology or in a matter-clad system. It's pure energy consciousness. It would appear as a blazing sun if you were to be able to see it from here. So our avatar level of identity is in the 4th harmonic universe, and what they call our rishi level of identity is in the 5th harmonic universe. What is interesting is after we get past the 7th level, we are no longer singular identities. We become part of the planetary logos, the planetary spirit, the identity of the planet, and then the galaxy. And eventually, we actually evolve as a consciousness to know ourselves and our I am presence as being the entire 15-dimensional matrix. We know ourselves as the unified field. And it's at that stage that we're ready to go home to God, because we start to realize that identity is one in many, all at the same time. I am is actually a plural concept when you get up into these dimensions. But for right now, we're going to just concentrate on the higher self, because the higher self is the bridge from where we are focused right now on a waking level to all those other aspects of identity in the higher dimensions. And there are many ways. There's many good programs out there besides ours as far as how to work with the higher self. And I suggest everybody look into them, because they're exciting. Work with them. You will find results. But we have our own way of, presenting information on how to start getting used to the higher self. Now, when we begin to take steps to actively make conscious contact with the higher self, it does a couple of things to our energy systems. It activates certain chakras. It activates the 5th, the 11th, the 2nd, and the 13th chakra. Now here's the rundown of how the guardians use the chakra layout. The 5th chakra is here, the 11th is here, the 2nd is here, and the 13th is here in the center of the earth. Okay, when we begin to use our minds in a way that we are directing energy to making an energetic conscious link with the higher self, it is activating those 4 chakras. When those 4 chakras activate in synchronization, they begin the reverse mutation process. So without having to understand all about our DNA and what part means what. If we begin to actively make a bridge where we learn to channel our higher selves consciously, where we can learn to dialogue with it, where we can learn to put ourselves in that state and bring that state into our body, it will automatically activate these chakra centers, and that will automatically start dismantling the genetic stop the Elohim put on us a long time ago, which will allow us, once we remove that, once we activate these energy centers, it will naturally start the rebuilding of the DNA process. So working with the higher self is much easier than trying to figure out your DNA and what parts belong to who and how do I do this. The higher self will tell you at your level of awareness what is right for you to do next with this process. It's a part of your identity. When you're dealing with higher self, I can put myself in that state of consciousness sometimes, and it's me. It's not like channeling somebody different. It's me, but it's me at a level of peace, awareness, perspective, cognition that, boy, I wish I had on a daily basis. I look forward to the point where I become my higher self and I can embody that, because you can do that. You can learn to work with your higher self until you integrate that level of identity with your own identity here. When you get to that point, it will change your sleeping patterns. You will find that you need less sleep. You will find that there's less of a distance between your waking focus and your dreaming focus. You will find the ability to start doing conscious astral projection become much easier. These are all the things that when you start working with your higher self that will happen. But the first stage in working with the higher self, and I think we're going to take a little break before I finish it, because there's some exercises I would like to introduce. It is important to understand the concept of channeling. Okay, and I'm not talking about channeling strange beings from outer space. Okay, a lot of us like to do that and some of us don't. But channeling is a very misunderstood concept in this world. It's not about esoteric philosophies and strange beings that might hurt you. Channeling is the innate ability that we have as human beings to read energy signatures. Everything around us right now is composed of energy units called particle, which we got into in the first class. Just knowing that all of this is energy, if you close your eyes and pretend you don't see the shapes and the forms, you'll get a feel there that you can still feel it around you. You can feel the people, maybe not see the shapes, but you feel it. You are feeling the energy fields around you. When people channel, whether they're channeling a plant, because you can channel plants, or channel, they're laughing at me, or if you're channeling some great being from the stars, you're doing the same thing when you're channeling. You are bringing an energy signature into your energy signature, and it is interacting with your energy signature, and it is translating through your neurological structure into language and image patterns that are familiar to your biology. You're taking energy transmissions and translating them into linear language and perception. That is what channeling is about. It's nothing scary. It's nothing, God forbids, it's nothing bad. A lot of people try to make it this big bad thing. It can get you in trouble if you don't know how to use it. Because if you don't know what energy you're bringing into yourself, yes, you can cause yourself some trauma. And anyone that teaches channeling or reading of energy signatures will teach you how to protect your energy fields from doing that. And it's just awareness. It's not that there's big bad things that are going to get you. It's just being aware of your own energy fields and being responsible for what you will allow into them and what you will not. So when we get back into this, I'm going to teach you a little bit. You're probably going to think I'm very silly. I'm going to do a couple exercises with you that are geared toward just getting you used to, first of all, sensing subtle energy, turning your mind into a direction. We usually just don't think about doing this, of sensing subtle energy patterns. We're used to thinking about, I see this and this means this. That if we learn to use our thoughts in a different way, we can learn to sense those energies that we can't see. And as we learn to sense the energy of objects and things here, this will teach us the skills neurologically that we need to begin sensing the different levels of our higher self. We will learn to channel our higher self the more we learn to sense energy, the more we learn to translate energy through our bodies. So for now, I think we better go in before we get rained on. You can take a short break, and then we can, continue with the exercises inside. There's 5 little exercises I'd like to do, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening.
It's not going to rain. It's just...
Okay, and now that we're back from break, we're going to go into the last phase of the class here. I'm not going to run it too long because a lot of people seem to express being tired or that they want, had to go places this evening. So I'm going to do a couple energy sensing exercises. These exercises are being brought to you in order to help you to begin sensing subtle energy fields. Because if your objective is to begin opening to your higher self and to that portion of yourself that we described before that was in the ultra-high frequency bands of the third dimension, if you want to begin bringing that level of consciousness into your waking consciousness, you do need to be able to know what it means to sense subtle energy. Because at first, when you begin to bring that part of your awareness in, there are sensations in your body that will take place, but they will be very subtle. What you are doing is you are bringing higher frequency energy into the body structure and into your neurological structure. So I want to begin with introducing you to opening to the higher self by teaching you first what it feels like, what I'm talking about when I say subtle energies, and teaching you just a little bit of mental focusing with the little physical props, the crystals that we have each chosen, that will help you get the feel of what a subtle energy is. What we're going to do in the first exercise is we have each selected 2 crystals. They're all of different types, and every person chose one as they felt like they wanted to pick that particular set of crystals. We are going to first, in our exercise, first I'd like you to get comfortable, but to sit with your spine as straight as possible. Because when your spine is straight, the energy current, it's called the main vertical current, that runs directly through your body and up into the higher chakras and down into the earth, it is much straighter, so the energy moves more clearly. When you are sensing subtle energies, you are bringing energy in through your palms, and you are bringing it up through your arms and into that main vertical current where it gets distributed through other parts of your body cells. And that's where you will get a sense of the energy field that you are sensing. So when your main vertical current is straight, when your back is straight, that holds your main vertical current straight, it will allow a smoother line of transition for the energy that's coming through your palms from the items you're holding to move into your system for translation. So whenever you're doing higher self-work, you can do it without adjusting your body posture, but it is very helpful to adjust your body posture to accommodate the most easy flow of energy. So back straight, I sit with my legs crossed, and some people don't. Some people prefer to put their feet on the ground with the chakras in the feet right on the ground. That may be a better method for some people. I'm just very uncomfortable in that position, so I sit this way. So in our exercise, once we get our posture adjusted to a comfortable level of straightness, just take a few deep and relaxing breaths, just to clear ourselves a little. I'm going to start talking a little bit slower now, because I've been talking pretty quickly through the rest of the presentation. Just take a few breaths, just to relax. Now, I would like you to begin by becoming aware of the crystal that you're holding in your left hand. First, I'd like to open your eyes and look at the crystal. Look at it up close. See its contours and its shape and its color. Just become familiar with it in visual terms. Once you've looked at it for a minute or two, then I would like you to close your hand around it, your left hand around it, loosely, where you're not squeezing it, because when you squeeze it, you're holding some of the sensing of the energy. You'll make it so your nerve endings are overstimulated where they won't pick up the more subtle impressions of the energy. And hold it loosely in your left hand. And now close your eyes and draw your attention to that hand and to the crystal it's holding. And for a minute, hold the image in your mind of the crystal that you saw when you were looking at it visually. Breathe deeply. Now imagine a current of energy moving from the middle of your brain, right behind your eyes, right around where your sixth chakra would be. Stream of white light moving down through your main vertical current that runs through the center of your body, down to the center of your breast area, then detouring over to the left and down the left arm, down into the left hand. Picture that line of white energy, creating an energy field around the crystal that you are holding. Try to feel the reality of this energy image that you just created, for you did create an image in energy. You created an energy signature that you have now wrapped around the energy signature of which the crystal is composed. Envision the white energy that you have created that is now surrounding the crystal. Envision this energy moving itself into the crystal, moving it through the crystal. Every molecule in the crystal is becoming imbued with this white energy that you have created. See the white light moving through the crystal and inward, until the crystal seems to be floating within the substance of the energy field you have created. You have now linked the energy field of your own main vertical current with the energy signature of the crystal object. For a moment or two, breathe in deeply, and when you inhale, imagine that you are pulling with you the entire energy signature of the crystal. You are taking the white light you had created and the crystal which is now contained within it. Visualize it moving up your arm, through your palm and then up your arm as you inhale, and bring it into the center of your body, right around the breast area, in the area of the heart chakra. Visualize the crystal there, in the center of the heart chakra. Now, from the crystal's position within the heart chakra, push out the energy field that you have made and expand the pattern of the crystal's energy through every cell in your body. You are sending the cells and the molecules and the DNA within the cells an impression of the energy signature that you are trying to read. Now, relax your mind a bit and gently focus your awareness, not crisply but very gently, as if you were looking at something out of the corner of your mental eye. Focus your energy toward the physical crystal that is in your hand. Try to feel the energy, the reality of its energy field. It is unique. Every item that you will ever pick up in your hand is unique from every other. It has its own very special energy signature. Feel the energy of the energy signature vibrating in your palm. Let it come to you. Become aware of the subtle energy field that sits in your hand with the object. Feel the weight of the object sitting upon your palm. Feel the texture of the object as it rests against your skin. Is it rough or smooth? Is it cool or warm? Become aware of these sensations. It may be necessary to slow your mind down a little, to focus on, I will now notice temperature. I will now notice texture. When you slow your mind down and point it at observing specific qualities, you will get a more accurate reading of the energy signature that you are trying to understand. So for a moment now, be with the crystal that you hold in your left hand. Try to feel its reality as strongly as you can. Try to feel yourself as part of it, and it is part of you. It will become more real to you as you do so. You may not have time this evening to reach the level of awareness in which you would begin to feel the merging of your energy field and that of the crystal. For sometimes it takes time to train the mind to loosen itself and loosen its focus in this way. But for now, just become aware of the sensation of the crystal. You may feel heat radiating from it. Some of you may feel coolness radiating from it. It depends on the krishta that you go.